Good morning, everyone, and welcome to R9 Tech Vets. Today we have Adam Fletcher and Victoria McKinnon, who will be presenting um, to us about practical online learning tools. This is our fifth and final session with Adam, so we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of our life and and sharing your gifts with us and your experience and your knowledge. So we really truly deeply appreciate it, and I'm excited about today's presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Adam, and it's all yours.
Thanks, April. And thank you so much for having us. It's really an honor to be so much a part of Region 9 over these last months and these sessions. It's been really fun. Of course, we love all of the good work of the Gen Yes schools there in Region 9 as well. Youth and Educators Succeeding is the name of the national nonprofit organization that I lead. And today I'm honored to be joined by my colleague, the illustrious Victoria McKinnon. Victoria is our Chief Operating Officer at Yes, and she works to support hundreds of schools every year in practical online learning through our Gen Yes program. She's been doing this a lot longer than I have and is spectacular at what she does. And I'll let her introduce herself when we get to that section of the agenda today. But to get us started, I want to introduce you a little bit more to the organization and what it is exactly that we do with this work. With Youth and Educators Succeeding, our mission is to engage students and educators together to transform learning. It turns out that's a pretty radical idea. For the last 20 years, I've been working with K-12 schools across the United States and around the world to build on this mission alone. I think that at the middle, at the heart of all of our society, for hundreds of years, young people have been these silent engines who are doing a ton of work. And I'm not talking about the Greta Thunbergs, who are spectacular. And I'm not talking about the young people at Parkland who are powerful. And I'm not talking about Malala, who's done wonderful things, because all of those young people are exemplary. But I know for a fact that right now in New Mexico, there are hundreds and hundreds of students who are working together with educators to transform learning, whether it's at home, whether it's in their community, whether it's in school. And it is powerful work that they're doing. We're here today to really wrap up a 5-part series focused on online student engagement. At Youth and Educators Succeeding, we're audacious enough to believe that online student engagement is transformative inherently. And instead of treating students as the passive recipients of online learning, we can engage them as partners in active and powerful learning. If you've been with me for the last 5 sessions, you've heard a lot of the ideas that are behind this. We've done a lot of the work of unpacking this. We've explored some of the facts, some of the realities. Well, let's take a look at what we've done. We've looked at useful frameworks. We've talked about the cycle of engagement, the yes ladder, and some of the different frameworks that have emerged from my research and practice over the decades. We've talked about some best practices, and we're really going to get a lot into those today as well. We've explored some facts. We've looked at successful engagement. We dug into online youth culture. This last session today is really focused on that last bullet point, the practical implementation. I'm going to frame out the session in 2 parts. One part involves me kind of laying out exactly why online learning matters and why student engagement needs to be the center of it in relationship to doing cool things. Then Victoria is going to jump into that practical, and she's really going to lay out some meaningful tools about online learning and what we can do with it. During the session today, I want to encourage you to use the chat window to share your questions, comments, concerns, ideas. I also want to point you to April's awesome collection of past presentations that we've done. You can find her links right now in the chat. Greetings to Charlton from Zuni. It's good to have you here. And I really want to encourage folks to use that chat to really share their ideas. I'm going to ask some questions along the way. We don't really do breakout rooms or different things because our time is so short and we have content that we really want to share. So without further ado, let me jump in. We've talked about student voice, and student voice is really the engine behind online student engagement. Student voice is any expression of any student anywhere at any time for any purpose as it relates to learning, schools, or education. This is important to understand when we're exploring online learning, if only because it's such a key to understanding students are constantly sharing their voices, even in this environment, even on Zoom or in Google Classroom or in Canvas or whatever technology you're using. Students are sharing their voices. If they have their camera off, if they have their camera on, if they're answering questions excitedly, or if they're not saying a word. We've explored this over the last 4 sessions before this, but it's important that we remember student voice is any expression of any student anywhere at any time for any purpose as it relates to learning, schools, or education. That'll tie in more as we move along. The second thing to remember is that student engagement is when young people choose the same things over and over. This happens psychologically, emotionally, academically, and culturally. It's not one of those things, it's all of those things, and even more. When the student constantly raises their hand and asks and answers and does all the things in class that a teacher wants them to, they are engaged. Good call. But the student who comes to school just to hang out with their friends every single day and they don't really care about what's happening in this online environment, they're engaged too with their friends, but it's still student engagement. The student who has a really deep connection with that one teacher and that one teacher really changed their life and they go to them over and over and over just to say hi, just to share the latest thing that they did, just to cry, whatever it is, that student is engaged. But so is the kid who only comes when school is in or when we're out doing hybrid learning. They only come to school because there's breakfast and lunch there. But they still come to school every day for that breakfast and lunch. That student is engaged. The question isn't whether or not students can be engaged, it's whether we're willing to see the ways that they are engaged and to work with those. So with those two things as our premise, it's important that we understand why online learning matters. You all know this because you've been in this struggle for all of these months, and I presume it's a struggle. We've talked about this a lot. But what it boils down to is ideas and cognition. Young people put it together in this space right now. What it boils down to are structures. Young people experience these structures of online learning, and they matter. Whether it's the chat, whether it's being lectured, whether it's watching videos that are exciting, whether it's building and coding, whether it's chatting, whatever the feature is, those structures are part of why online learning matters. The experiences that students have are why online learning matters. This is a reminder to you that everything that you do online, even though it doesn't feel great to you sometimes, even though students aren't always clapping and raising their hands, it still matters. The experiences matter. And that rolls into the next bullet point. The social emotional learning component matters. And of course, the results matter more than test scores, more than grades even. The results of our time in online learning, this is carving out a year or more of these students' lives. And even though it's short to us, well, at least to me, because apparently I'm middle-aged because of my new glasses, a year to me isn't that much. I remember when my daughter, she's 17 now, I remember when she was 7, like it was yesterday. April, get ready, it goes fast, so fast. But to a person who is 9 years old, to a person who is 16 years old, to a person who is 6 years old, 1 year is a lot of time. And in this online learning environment where we've spent so much time, this is the real life and these are real results for them. So we're going to get into practical tools to engage students. And I want to share with you my friend and coworker, Victoria McKinnon. Victoria is, again, I can't say enough, but I will say this. In 10 years of her work at Youth and Educators Succeeding, that's right, 10 years, she started when she was 14. She has supported more than 1,000 schools in implementing the Gen Yes curriculum. She does professional development, coaching, assessment, web design. She is my guru of gurus for not just Gen Yes, but for our entire approach through our organization for online learning. So without further ado, let me hand over the microphone to Victoria. Take it away, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Adam. That's a great introduction to me. Wow, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for letting me to present. I'm going to go over just a little section about some practical online tools, things that you can implement in your online classrooms or hybrid classrooms right away. So before I start, though, it's important to understand that young people moved into the digital age a long time ago, right? Pandemic came around, schools went online, kind of scrambled to figure things out, but students have been using apps to coordinate virtual hangouts, organize events, game together, play together, make videos, create music. They've been doing that for quite some time. And especially now with the pandemic, they can't just go hang out at each other's houses. So what are they doing? They're hanging out online. And it's okay to come into that space. All those wonderful things that Adam's talking about, the experiences, the social and emotional, aspects of online learning, the results that you get, students are practicing those in their daily lives. There are free online tools for organizing and communicating at a distance that students are using every single day. Now, in your online classrooms, you're probably trying to engage students with maybe some like cool video effects on Zoom, right? Or check-ins, an online LMS of some kind. But students are actually building communities out there outside of the class. So why not make your classroom a little bit more like a community to kind of bring them into that space of feeling comfortable talking with their fellow students, talking with you, and having these exciting moments where they can really bring their whole self to class. Adam, if you want to move the slides for me. So I'll talk a little bit about some communities. Right before I get started though, this is the first tool in your toolkit, alternative2.net. This is a quick website. I recommend jotting it down. If you have any kind of app or website and you go to alternative2.net, you can put the name of that software or app into this website, hit enter, and it will give you a list of similar tools. So if your school or your district blocks some kind of tool at your school or a website and you want to find something similar you can use, it's really easy to go to this site. You can evaluate different options and figure out what's going to work best for you. All right. So the first thing I'll talk about, classrooms as communities. Again, you probably have some kind of LMS where you post assignments. You probably keep in touch with students, maybe via email. Maybe if you have push notifications set up, it sends out a text to their phones when you post an assignment or something like that. But think about, how do you stay in touch with students right now? All right, now let's think about go back, Adam. How are students keeping in touch with their peers? They're probably texting, maybe they have group chats, but I want to introduce the concept of a private server. Yeah, that's right. Students actually have places that they have built online to talk to their friends in small private groups. Now, this is really accessible. It has to be, right? Different students have different kinds of devices at home or different levels of, varying internet access. But so they have to find a place where they can bring everybody together in one spot. It's personable, it's engaging, easy, uncomplicated communication. So this is something that I think we could learn from students. The two icons you see on the screen, Discord and Slack, are two apps I'll talk about real quick. They're both community building apps. You want to pop us to the next slide, Adam? Thank you. So this is Discord. If you've never heard of Discord before, it can be a little bit hard to describe. This app rose to fame in gaming communities. Students who really like video games make Discord servers so that they can communicate with their friends who play the same games. It's free, anybody can use it. All you need is an email to get registered. Conceptually, imagine something called a server. Only special people you invite can join that server where there are topic-based channels. Now, a channel, maybe you could imagine like an old forum topic where students can write posts to respond to something, right? only this is 2021. So these different channels, it's all instant messaging to send to each other. You can share GIFs, you can share photos, you can react to posts with emojis, but it's all really snappy, quick communication, right? Discord is used for, oh gosh, just about everything. Gaming communities, Dungeons and Dragons groups, fan servers dedicated to music artists, a place to share cooking recipes, so much more. There are also voice channels in the Discord app. These are like lounge areas, so people can pop in and talk to each other and leave anytime. You can share video as well. Now, I'm going to pause right here. Do you see how Discord could sort of mimic a classroom environment only online? Having this space where students can pop in and ask quick questions of their classmates or even ask something of you and get an answer almost immediately. It's a lot less stiff and formal than having to go and compose an email and think really carefully about, how to construct that. It's a little bit more, I don't know, casual, a little bit more fun, and really allows the students to express themselves a little bit better. Now, professionally maintained Discord communities, such as our own in-house Yes Network. Yes, we do have a Discord community for our organization. We have lots of different channels on the screen. You can see we actually have areas for students to talk. We have VIP areas for just educators to talk, because you can assign roles to different people who join these communities. In practice, if you were building an online classroom, you could actually assign roles to your different students so that students from period 1 have their own little hangout spot to talk, period 2, period 3. But then you can also have an area where all the students from all of your classes can talk. So if you had an assignment that was something similar for all of your classes, now they have a place where they can ask questions of their peers and others who were there, so that if there's any clarifying questions, super easy to get answers. Adam, if you want to pop to the next slide. Another community building app is Slack. It's similar to Discord, but this one rose to fame because it was being used in workplaces. It's meant for employees to coordinate in large companies, right? Well, it was the hip young tech companies who started using it first. And that meant young people were like, oh, hey, this looks like a great tool to use with my friends. These are some screenshots from a Slack server I'm a part of that's for a book club. You'll notice that here we have, one of my friends is saying, oh, when is book club? Well, we have a bot that responds with the time. So both in Discord and Slack, you can invite bots to the server to automate certain processes, answering frequently asked questions, making surveys, making polls that are super interactive. Both of these different apps do it all. So that's pretty exciting. I think the only difference in Slack to be wary of is that Slack doesn't have voice chat channels. So if you don't want this component of students being able to pop in and like actually talk with a mic, then Slack might be the app for you. Adam, if you want to jump to the next slide for me. So talking a little bit more in general about the structure of a community and why this is so successful is because it's the experience of organization that you have in the classroom brought online, right? You have an announcements channel. This is just like having the topic of the day posted on the board. You've got chat channels for discussion. So this is just like having a verbal discussion and calling on students. You have the ability to actually ping certain people so they get a notification when their name is mentioned. This is just like calling on people in an actual classroom, but now it's online. Pinned and easily located references. You can find resources, stick them in one spot, and then it's always easy for students to pop back to them and see them. The bots that I mentioned. So this is quite a bit different than an LMS. It's not just giving information out, but you're encouraging discussion and you're bringing students into this whole learning process. Now, you can do both things in a community, giving out information and encouraging the discussion, but think about an innocuous question like, hey, how's your day going? That might not be something that you would want to post on your LMS to go out to everyone as an official assignment, but it's certainly the kind of chatter that you could involve in a community. This is what helps build relationships and bonds and makes it a lot more personable and something that students want to come interact with. If you want to pop to the next slide, Adam. So what do successful communities do? Regular posts and patterns of behavior. I've been hearing this over and over since the pandemic started. It is so important to have some kind of routine. You get up, you have some kind of morning ritual and you start your day. when everybody's kind of stuck at home, it's really easy for everything to sort of blur together. So it's important for a community that there's homework, there's reminders, there's maybe even learning standards posted, just like you would in a physical classroom, but you can do that with announcements in a community. Spark conversation with questions. You can post a photo and ask about the significance of it. Maybe it's a map or a person, a document. You can ask, how did you feel today? Have students react with emojis, send out an occasional extra credit question so students are, motivated to come back and keep checking in. Availability is really important. Think about office hours, right? Have your students know I'm going to be available from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. I'll be checking, and if you have any questions, I can answer it during that time. Because it's so easy to switch to another window and just really quickly, get to something a student chatted to you. Out of class study groups, that's what I mentioned with these roles, having different channels for different periods of the day. You can break out, like have miniature breakout rooms that are really just chat rooms for students to talk in. Of course, you can see the content of everything that goes on in those chat rooms. So it's so easy to pop in and help students if there's something they need clarification on. Next slide, Adam. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of how you can reimagine your online classroom, bring in some elements of community, bring in some elements of interactivity, and students will keep coming back and they might be a little bit more comfortable with this whole, online thing. Now, here are some recommended apps. I'm going to go through 12 of them as quickly as I can. Adam, was there a question?
Just really quick, just so everybody knows, we're doing some chat, so make sure you take a look over in that window. Also, all of you will not be satisfied from this presentation. It's going to go fast, this part of it especially. So make sure you have your hearing on, but also April will share links and the presentation and different things at the end. So if you don't catch something as Victoria goes, you'll have another chance to get it later on. So just a quick note. Sorry to interrupt there, Victoria. Jump in the chat if you have questions though. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, please do monitor the chat and wave at me or something as we go along. So even if you don't end up making a community, I hope you take some of these ideas and try incorporating them into whatever platform you have. Go ahead and pop to the next one. I'm going to talk about the most popular apps first, 6 of the most popular I've seen in the last couple months. And then we'll talk about some that are a little out there, a little bit new, so you can try experimenting with new stuff. So first, Kahoot, Pear Deck, and Flipgrid. These are used by educators all over the United States. I assume everybody here has mostly heard of them. What Kahoot is, it's a online app that allows you to create quiz show, game style, activities for your students. It's interactive gaming. You can use question banks to mix and match existing questions using templates. You can customize Kahoots that are created by other users. This is something that you can give to students to do on their own time, or you can even host it live. So this is really good if you have a hybrid classroom, you have students who are in class and some who are learning at home. You can host a Kahoot and play it on video so that your students who are at home can tune in, and your students who are in your physical classroom can see it blown up on your big screen, right? There you can have questions and answer alternatives that are all displayed. Students play by using their own devices. So that's a really exciting way to kind of bring, hybrid learning together, bring the two groups both at home and in the class together. Pear Deck's pretty cool too. It's an add-on for Google Slides. So if you're really fond of Google Slides, working through those with your students, Pear Deck is a really cool addition. Also, before I go in too far into this, something I forgot to mention at the beginning, all of these apps are free. Some of them have a premium alternative with extra features or something, but the free versions work great for anything that you want to do. So Pear Deck, you can create custom activities or questions from scratch that actually are embedded in your slideshow. So as you work along, the students are also working along through their Pear Deck, and they can submit text responses to you, number responses, multiple choice, all sorts of interesting things there. I think in the premium version of Pear Deck, they can even do drawings that they submit to you while you're presenting. So it's super interactive and kind of spices up those old slideshows. Teachers love Flipgrid. I've heard this from so many teachers. Flipgrid is a video platform. So you can post videos to your students and your students can post videos back to you. Think if you wanted students to do, say, talk about some topic in a book that you read together. The students, instead of having to write out a response and submit it, can submit a video instead of them talking through their thoughts and thinking about the topic. Just a couple minutes long, but for a lot of students, that can be a little bit easier than having to write something out. And, it's something they can do on the go. So very helpful for students to have different flexible options for submitting assignments. All right, next top 3 most popular apps. Padlet, many of you have probably heard of this. This is like an electronic bulletin board. Students can upload documents, text, videos, images, lots of different content all to one place. So it's like one big wall that everyone can contribute to. And this allows students to connect topics together. So there's a way to like thread different resources together and into clumps. So it can also be used for brainstorming and, just putting together good classroom resources. Nearpod is presentation software. So again, this is kind of similar to Pear Deck that we talked about on the last slide, where you can embed open-ended or multiple choice questions throughout a presentation. It also spices things up though, because you can like put videos in and let students watch those as they're working through a slideshow. You can have audio comments as well. You can either control the pace of the presentation as a presenter, or there's a special like homework mode, so students can go through at their own pace. There's a whole teacher dashboard that goes with Nearpod as well, so that's really easy to access. It provides like analytics about, where the students are spending the most time, that sort of thing. So if you want something that's both presentation and like an assignment giver all in one big package, Nearpod is good for that. Pear Deck, which I mentioned on the last slide, is a little bit more if you're just trying to have an interactive presentation. I believe Nearpod has also released something called Nearpod Collaborate for 2021. That one is kind of similar to Jamboard, which we're about to talk about. It allows you to share text and images in real time on one big board together with your students. Jamboard is the last tool here. This is like have you ever done an activity with sticky notes? Do you love sticky notes? Because Jamboard is the tool for you. This is like an online whiteboard where you can type in sticky notes, like, just like jot down a few words, slap them on the board, then you can move them around, you can draw lines between them, you can label them, put them in different sections. So Jamboard is a really good brainstorming tool, and it's really fun if you're, having a popcorn discussion or just trying to come up with something with your students and you want them to really get thinking and just putting quick thoughts on the page. Jamboard is great for that. Everybody can collaborate on Jamboard, and it's tied to the Google Suite of tools. So if you have G Suite, you've got Jamboard. All right, so now I'm going to cover a few apps that are a little bit lesser known. These are pretty cool. Scener is the first one. This is a really new up and coming app. During the pandemic, a lot of apps came out or just got super refined that had to do with people getting to watch movies together online, because, we all miss movie theaters, right? So Scener is a platform where you can actually create a private virtual room and then play videos and watch them together. They're all synced at the same time. So everybody in one room is viewing the same video at the same time. This allows you, if you wanted to watch documentaries with your students, or even a video about someone's workplace experience, like you wanted to see a day in the life of a programmer at Google or something like that, you could put on a video like that for your class, and there's a live chat box, so your students can have a discussion about what they're seeing as they're watching it. So that can be a fun way to collaborate. Image Flip, I included this one because this is a meme maker. You can go in and generate memes about your classroom, about, even just what's going on in life. It makes you a little bit more personable to students, I think. If you're not too sure what memes are, you could ask your students. They would probably be, very happy to help explain these to you. But it's a large part of youth culture online to, poke fun at things or describe their experiences in meme form. So this is something you can use to be a little bit more personable and kind of come to the students where they're already communicating like that. It also has the ability for you to make GIFs out of videos. So if you wanted to leave some kind of feedback on student work, but you wanted to personalize it even further, you could make a little video of yourself giving like a thumbs up, turn it into a GIF, and post it on one of their assignments. And then they actually get to see you, your facial expressions. So it adds a little bit more of this personal connection that is unfortunately kind of missing during COVID. So could be something fun for you to use. Whiteboard.fi. This is the best whiteboard collab app I've seen. There are a lot of them out there. I recommend checking this one out. It's got all the features. You can draw, you can write, you see it all real time, live, and it's very easy to get started and to host rooms that your students can come into. When you create a room, which is totally free, you don't even have to set up an account. Like that's how quick it is to get in. You give your students a room code, and then they'll be able to pop into the same room with you to draw or write and collaborate. It's really cool. Like if you're, a geography teacher, you could put in a map and then draw over sections of the map, that kind of thing. That's really hard to duplicate when you're online learning, but whiteboard.fi does it great. Inkle Writer is a really cool app. This allows you and your students to write interactive stories. So, way back when, did you ever have a physical book where, you started reading it and it was like, okay, if you want to make this decision, go to page 20. And if you want to make that decision, go to page 15. So it's like a little adventure book and you start reading. And as you go through a decision tree, you eventually write your own story. Inkle Writer is the online version of that. So think about a really compelling story, like if I were an immigrant to the US, how would I get citizenship? And you can have all sorts of different paths and options for students to choose to work through this story and try to put themselves into somebody else's shoes. Also really great for a creative writing class if you wanted students to do an assignment where they had to, think what it might be like to live as somebody else, then they can write a story like that and have their peers play through it. Canva, another really cool app for doing projects. This one allows you to design social media posts, posters, flyers, just about anything graphic design you could possibly imagine. I thought a really creative thing one of my teachers did was design a social media post as if you were a figure from history or a special person from a book that they were reading at the time. So lots of different ways to use a content creation app like Canva, which is totally free, super easy to use, super easy to export from. CoSpaces. I actually had a teacher in Compton use CoSpaces, which is an online app for building 3D environments. He had his students build eco-friendly housing to meet United Nations sustainability goals. And he had a whole lesson about it so they could talk about green living, what's friendly for the environment. You can actually use this to build just about any kind of 3D environment though. So even think about creating a virtual copy of your classroom that a student can walk inside and they can click on different areas to pick up different files. So they could come over to your desk and click to pick up a paper with an assignment on it. It'll send them to a linked PDF, that kind of thing. You can create a virtual house even, and then inside, if you're, teaching a different language, you could have different words on the different objects to show students as they walk through what that means. If I were learning Japanese and I walk into a house, there could be mado printed on a window so that I, can kind of pick that up. So it's a different way to learn interactively. Now, the last thing I have to say to you is to try and explore, right? We just rapid fire went through 12 different apps, but there are so many more out there. The best place to get new ideas is to talk to your students. They are using different apps, different software, lots of different tools in their everyday lives that you might not have heard of, but that could be really cool and really interesting to use in your classroom. Other good places to go, of course, are like EdWeek and Edutopia. Plenty of articles describing how to do online learning, but again, ask your students. They'll have some answers for you. So that's what I have for you today.
Thanks, Victoria. That's awesome. What I would love for everybody to do, April just put some really exciting news in there. April, can you blurb that really quick and say it out loud for folks?
Sure. So just to let everyone know that R9 Tech Bits is now hosting a bi-monthly 1-hour session, and it's a sandbox session. It's an opportunity for educators to come together and to actually, we'll spend 10 minutes with a quick short presentation talking about a lot of these apps that Victoria just mentioned. And then we'll have some time, some work time to actually build those tools so you can walk away with, after that hour, walk away with something to actually use in the classroom the very next day if you want. So Amanda O'Darty is participating in that. She's one of our uh, gurus of using online tools and these types of tools in the classroom. So she'll be participating. We have a whole tech team that's just there available with a lot of support. So if you're interested in this, go check out our MailChimp, click on the registration link. It'll take you to another web page where you'll see our times and topics that we'll be hosting. So
Thanks so much, April.
yes.
Now let's put some context to all of this, because I want to get us back to that big theme that all of this is woven through. It's awesome to do fun stuff with technology, and it's great to see students get excited and really doing the good stuff. But why? Why is it fun? Why is it good? And my point is, and the reason why we've been doing these presentations for these months, is student engagement. The whole point is to get students, to bring students to the place where they choose to connect in class over and over, where they choose to make those academic, social, cultural, psychological connections in our classes over and over online. That's why I introduced this cycle of engagement. The cycle of engagement was one of the frameworks that I mentioned earlier that emerged from my study of student engagement, and it's been reiterated over the years. What I would love for everybody to do, you remember when we gone through it if you were in the previous sessions, but for the folks who haven't seen it yet, it's these 5 simple points: listen, validate, authorize, act, reflect. We listen to student voice. We validate what students say, not just by saying yes, not just by saying no, but sometimes by asking more questions. We authorize students to take action. We say, you have ability, you have position, you have knowledge. We give them something to do so that they can practically actually take action. And then we reflect on it so that they can discern what they learned, how they learned, when they learned, where they learned it. What I would like for everybody to do in the chat right now, take one of these 5 different actions inside of the cycle of engagement and drop me the name of a tech that you use practically, actually right now, to answer one of those 5 things. What app, what technology do you use right now to listen to students? Drop that in the chat. What technology do you use right now to validate students, to give them feedback and reply and respond? What technology do you use right now to authorize students to build their authority, to give them the permission to tell their own story? What technology do you use right now to take action with students so they can actually do something? What technology do you use right now to reflect with students? So we're getting some results. April says Zoom with adults, Microsoft Teams, Nearpod and Screencastify. Victoria says Moat, personal texts, Microsoft boards, Kahoot, Google Meets, Remind. What else do you use, folks? Give me some more ideas. Anything at all, any technology that you use online to help students have these experiences. Poly, Zoom, Google Meet, Jamboard, Edpuzzle, Google Classroom Meets. Any other ideas? What would be a great app to use to reflect with students, to really get them to look back on their work and put it all together in sense? With Gen Yes, with the Gen Yes program, we have a learning management system where we weave reflection into our process of teaching the course. And a lot of teachers have found usefulness in having students do structured reflection as well as free-form reflection to really tie together their own learning from grades 3 through 12. Dojo and Zoom. So you see that a lot of you already have ideas about how we make student engagement happen, how we can foster student engagement online. I think it's really important to keep in mind that there are so many places, spaces, and avenues to get this done. You'll notice that, especially if you've been with us for the course of these 5 presentations, I save the tools till last. That's because student engagement is ultimately up to you, whether you are an educator, a teacher, a librarian, a principal, a district worker, a state worker, or anybody in any role in schools. Ultimately, the challenge is yours. You know, it's Captain Planet all over again, but now it's technology. The technology is yours. You've got to find what works for you and use that. My encouragement is to use it with intention. Don't just fall back on your patterns and routines, even if you've just established them in the last 6 months. Shake it up and bring in new. One of the great things that I've learned from technology, and specifically from being inside of this ed tech industry, it's a thing. Wow. Anyhow, it's all about iteration and this whole idea that we constantly create, tear down, and recreate. And we can't be afraid to do that, because that is the future. It's the present. It's what's happening right now. For every Tesla car that you hear about, there were dozens of other previous electric cars that came along and tried. For every great technology that we have, whether it's you guys remember chocolate bar phones and flip phones and that whole thing where phones were ridiculous and weird. And some of us remember the big old phones, right? April did it. Now we got this iPhone, and it's simple and smooth and easy, and that will continue to change. My glasses will someday be Google glasses, and I'll be that guy. I don't care what you say. No, I'm joking. I do care. I care what you say about my Google glasses when I get them. But the point is that technology keeps changing. In the same way, students keep changing. And where do those roads meet? With student engagement. So I want to close with a story today. And I want to encourage you to put any questions, comments, concerns, considerations, ideas inside the chat. We'll have some Q&A time here at the end. But let me just say really quick, here's a story to close our time. I think it's really, really important that in our own work, we work to find the connections with all of the things and all of the different ways that we can be doing this work of student engagement and teaching, and really building democracy, because at the end of the day, that's what this all boils down to. If schools aren't for democracy, I don't know what they're for. Not just jobs. But anyhow, I think this story can wrap together this idea, and it goes like this. It's a simple story. Forgive me if I've told it before. I don't have thorough notes on which stories I tell and don't tell, but you get the idea. The story is a simple one. It starts with some parents who were really excited. Oh, I think I did this in the first session. Anyway, it starts with some parents who were really excited when their kid was born. And they were so excited that they planted a tree in their yard. Somebody has their noise on.
Now it's 3 this week out of 4.
There we go. So these parents were so excited when their kid was born that they planted a tree out in front of their house. And as the tree grew up, the kid grew up. One day the kid goes out to the tree, and the tree says, "Hey, do you want to play and have fun?" And the kid's like, "Yeah." So the kid climbs a tree and plays and has so much fun. A little bit of time passes, and the tree doesn't see the kid as often. But one day the kid comes out of the house, and the tree says, "Hey, kid, do you want to climb the tree and play and have fun?" And the kid isn't a kid anymore. Instead, the kid's a teenager. And you know how those teenagers are. And this teenager says, "Oh, that sounds interesting, but I'm cool, you know, and all my friends are down at the mall, and they're hanging out, and they're being cool, and they're buying new shoes. And I want to buy new shoes, but I don't have any money, and I don't know what to do. What do I do?" The tree says, "Well, climb my branches. Climb my branches and go to the very ends of the limbs and pick the fruits. Pick the fruits and take them down to the farmer's market and sell them, and get yourself some money, and go to the mall and hang out with your friends and be cool and buy new shoes." So the kid climbed the tree, picked the fruit, bought new shoes. A long time passed before the tree saw the kid again, until one day the kid comes walking by, and the tree says, "Hey, kid, come and climb my branches. Let's play and have fun." But the kid's not a kid anymore or a teenager, but instead a young adult. And you know how those young adults are. This young adult says, "Oh, that sounds awesome, but but my friends are out, they're buying new cars, they're starting families, they're buying houses, and I want to buy a house, but I don't know what to do. What do I do, tree?" And the tree says, "Well, climb my branches and cut them off. Cut them off and plane them into boards and build yourself a house with your own two hands." And the kid, who wasn't a kid or a teenager, but a young adult, says, "That's a great idea." And they climb the tree and they cut off all the branches and they plane them into boards and they build a beautiful house with their own two hands. And a long time passes before the tree sees the kid again. Until one day, the tree was standing there and sees the kid walk up. And he says, "Hey, kid, come in. Let's hang out and be friends." Because it didn't have any limbs anymore. It was just this trunk. And the kid wasn't a kid anymore, or a teenager, or a young adult, but instead a middle-aged adult. And apparently I'm supposed to know what middle-aged adults are like, because this middle-aged adult says, "Oh, that sounds exhausting. I'm tired. I've been working for so long. And I just want to get out of here, but I don't know how to get out. I don't know how to get away from it all. What do I do?" Tree says, "Well, come and climb my branches, pick all my fruit." No, wait. We don't have any branches left, and you picked all the fruit. "Come and cut my trunk down and carve it into a boat. Put a sail on it, put oars on it, put it in the Rio Grande, sail down and go out into the Gulf and sail out to the ocean and go away and never come back. Get out of here." And the kid, who wasn't a kid anymore, but a middle-aged adult, says, "Wow, that sounds like a great idea." So the middle-aged adult cuts down the tree and carves out a boat and sails down the river and sails out the Gulf and goes out the ocean and doesn't come back for a long, long time. Until one day the tree is just sitting there, but instead it's just a stump. And it sees this old person come walking up. They're hobbled over, they're using a cane, and they come walking up. And the tree says, "Hey, tree, I would love to offer you," or the tree says, "Hey, kid, I'd love to offer you something, but I don't have anything left to give you." And the kid, who wasn't a kid anymore, but instead an old person, says, "You know, when I wanted fruit, or when I wanted new shoes, you gave me your fruit. And when I wanted a house, you gave me your boards. When I wanted a way out, you gave me your trunk. Now I want to be your friend. How can I be your friend? What can I do for you?" The tree says, "Well, I have always wanted somebody who would sit down and talk to me and just be friends." So this old person hobbles over to this stump, and the stump kind of shimmies up, and the old person sits down, and they talked, and they were friends for the rest of their days. This is the work of online student engagement. Sometimes we're the tree, sometimes we're the kid. Always it's an exchange. I want to thank you all so much for your time over these last months, and today I want to thank my co-presenter Victoria, who is awesome and I appreciate and admire in so many ways. And I want to thank April and Brian for having us. Remember to do the survey that April posted in the chat, and thank you all so much for your time. Have great days. Bye.
Thank you, Adam. So just real quickly on the surveys, apparently I think when the survey is reflecting January 20th, but the return message may be reflecting January 6th. So I've informed our person who creates those, and we'll get that typo fixed. Don't worry, we'll receive a certificate of attendance with the correct date on it. So thank you for taking the time to fill out that survey. We
Also,
appreciate
I
your
encourage you
feedback.
to be as honest and open and forthright in those surveys as you possibly can. That's what helps us grow and become better. Thanks, guys.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you
yes.
so much.
Thank you. Adam, Victoria, oh, I'm sad, but we have one more session this afternoon. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. And if you need anything or can think of anything that you need prior to that session, let me know. I'm here.
Thanks, April.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.